So much is happening around the legislative sector of Nigeria. Topmost is the heated exchange which occurred between Senator Onyekachi Onwebonyi, representing Ebonyi North, and former Minister of Education Obi Ezekwesili on Tuesday during a Senate Committee on Ethics, Code of Conduct, and Public Petitions hearing. The session, which was convened to address a petition from Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan concerning sexual harassment allegations against Senate President Godswill Akpabio, was disrupted until order was restored, and subsequently, the chairman, Senator Neda Imasue, announced that the matter was sub judice, leading to an adjournment of the hearing. More so, the House of Representatives on Tuesday advanced a bill seeking to amend the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria 1999, as amended, to mandate that all general elections covering the offices of the President, state governors, National Assembly, state houses of assembly, and local government area councils be conducted simultaneously on a single date, determined by the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, in consultation with the National Assembly.
Nation's democratic history, coming from a background of worse, voter apathy, crisis, and election manipulation, holding all elections in one day in Nigeria will achieve major things like: one, it will reduce costs. So instead of going 2-3 Saturdays to do this election, paying the same INEC staffs and ad hoc staffs and so on and so forth, we can put all these elections in one basket in one day. Then voter apathy. Normally, when somebody that is supporting a presidential candidate feels the presidential candidate has lost, he may not turn out to vote for state assembly. But now we're going to have supporters of presidential candidates, supporters of senatorial candidates, rep candidate, governorship candidate, state assembly candidate, local government. You can imagine how the polling unit is going to be very busy. And then for election security, now you're going to have almost about 12 agents or 3 agents for one party, times the number of parties participating. So the number of agents in that polling unit has already formed a security ring around the electoral process. And that will ensure that those who normally come to frighten voters and run away, you're going to see not less than 500, 1,000 people in one polling unit. So in terms of reducing costs, all election holding in one day in Nigeria is coming at the right time. In terms of security, it's coming at the right time that people try to snatch ballot and don't want election to be uploaded and so on and so forth. Then in terms of saving hours, so instead of locking down the country for 2-3 Saturdays, we can have all this election in one day.
Joining us now on this show as we discuss the developments in the National Assembly is Chibuzo Okereke, a legislative governance expert and policy analyst, and the president of EGAV Africa Legislative Innovation Hub. Thank you very much for joining us, Mr. Okereke. Good morning.
Thank you. Good morning, Global Doc, my sister Vimbai, and Rufi on fire, if I may borrow from the Adauku of Omokwata. It's good to be here.
Morning.
Good morning. Well, very quickly.
Good morning.
2 major issues. The INEC chairman himself, Professor Yakub Mahmoud, recommended last week that it would be more cost-effective to hold elections in one day in the country, as is the case in Ghana, Sierra Leone, Venezuela, and in other parts of the world. But does Nigeria have the capacity? Does INEC have the capacity when you consider the level of logistics problems that we have with management of technology, with deployment of election materials, even with the staggered structure of elections that we have? And then the other issue in that intro has to do with the behavior of our parliamentarians, either on the floor of the parliament or during sessions. And some people have been asking that, look, more lawmakers should be suspended because of their parliamentary conduct. What do you say about the kind of stories we've been having coming out of the National Assembly?
All right, thank you very much. On the issue of one day or single day election, as you may know, Nigeria is about the only country that doesn't even have an election date. As at today, the election date in US in 2028. In Ghana, you know the election date in 2028. Nigeria, by the latest Electoral Act Amendment of 2022, INEC has to give notice of election date 1 year before that election. And I think that is even an aberration. We should be able to know, for a democracy we have practiced for 25 years plus, we should be able to know our election date by now. Also, in terms of whether these elections can be conducted in 1 day, I think the answer is correct. However, like you pointed out, it's going to be a logistical nightmare. As at today, the manpower needed for election in Nigeria is about 2 million. And if you're going to do it in 1 day, you're looking at almost 4 million and above. And one thing about policy design I worry about in Nigeria is how much we don't think through. Policies sound nice, and then we go into designing for the implementation without evidence production. But that particular bill couldn't have passed even second reading without a compendium of logistics, plan, and evidence that you are putting forward. And that is why some of us are also promoting the need for robust debate in legislative process, so that we don't just think about something nice and then we go on to do it. Yes, the opportunity will still be there at the public hearing and what have you, but it's doable. However, we need to plan and plan very well, and there should be attitudinal change by all politicians for this to be able to work. Then fusing local government election into it is another challenge. I believe, from where I stand as a professional, no president will sign that bill when passed, because we know the advantage of bandwagon effect. But let's be hopeful that maybe this will work. On the second leg of your question, I liked a bit of a background, because what brought us to where we are now are both systemic failure and our inability to invest and design a system for capacity building. For instance, on the 31st of October 2023, the distinguished senator that we are now facing a case was declared the winner by the National Assembly Appeal Court Tribunal. Within 48 hours, precisely on the 2nd of November 2023, she was sworn in. Some of us wondered when she even did her asset declaration documentation in the National Assembly. And as at that time, the National Assembly new parliament induction program had finished, and there was no room or a system designed to ensure that she is properly indoctrinated in the proceedings and rules of the Senate. On that very day, 2nd November, when she was inaugurated, she took an oath of allegiance as prescribed in Schedule 7 of the Constitution. And one of the lines there says, "I shall faithfully and honestly observe or execute the Constitution and the rules of the Senate." In fact, the legislature is the only body where those taking oath of office will have to subscribe to execute the Constitution and the rules. Other, like the president and governors and co, don't have those rules enshrined in their oath of office. Fast forward to 14 days after, he was appointed chairman of Committee on Local Content. Compare that with Senator Austin Akobundo, who was declared on the 4th of November, and it took almost 3 weeks for him to be, inaugurated. Go fast forward to 8th December, where she said an incident happened. By 28 December 2023, the National Assembly passed a budget that her constituency got over ₦1 billion constituency development intervention by the federal government. Fast forward to February 2024, there was an incident in the temporary chamber of the Senate where she was found discussing with Senator Akwashinki, disrupting the proceedings of the Senate. The Senate president named her, and she stood up and apologized to the Senate. Rather than get a suspension of a legislative day, a legislative week, 14 days, as the case may be, that was forgiven. Fast forward to 30th April 2024, the day that the National Assembly moved from temporary chamber to to the main chamber. Proceedings were disrupted in the Senate for over 30 minutes over seat allocation because certain ranking senators said they cannot be, they don't like the seat allocated to them. And some of them privately queried how come a new senator like distinguished Senator Natasha and others were given even prominent seats? And that was because the person, the person in charge of allocation of seats was...
I appreciate that you're trying to give us context. Yes. So if you will just get to, you know, get to your final submission. I appreciate, just in the interest of time, yes, we understand the context. Give us your final submission. And then also, let me just quickly throw in a question before you go that. So once you finish with that, then I'd love for you to, because you touched on local government elections. And of course, we're looking at the creation of the Local Government Electoral Commission. And many are saying that, is it possible to go back to what happened in 1998, where you saw opposition members sweeping the polls, winning local government chairmanship positions? Some are saying that we are too far gone, that even with the creation of any local government electoral commission, the political culture is too far gone. What is your reaction to this comment? So you can go ahead, you can land on your point around the management of this case concerning Senator Akpoti, and then please, are we too far gone for local government election commission and reform in that sense?
Yeah, thank you very much. So just to land on the incident that happened in the committee hearing room. So Order 95A, Rule 4 of the Senate Standing Orders governs how the Committee on Ethics manage their affairs. Of course, the Constitution, the Legislative House Powers and Privileges Act, and the Legislative Customs and Tradition. Usually, when a hearing is being conducted, the people that have been invited will be briefed adequately by the Sergeant-at-Arms and the clerk secretariat of that committee. I don't know how much they were briefed, where an observer is supposed to sit, where a petitioner is supposed to sit, and where witnesses are supposed to, sit. That altercation was absolutely unnecessary, and I expected the chairman of the committee to actually name them.
Hello, sir. Please,
and report progress.
Can you hear me?
Rufai, I'm with you. Let me land on the question. Yes, please.
Hang on a minute. With due respect, you have come and you have deflected from the subject matter. Please stay on topic. We're asking about, elections, all the elections being held one day. You have veered into an historical analysis of Natasha Akpoti's matter. Now you are beginning to talk about Senate Ethics Committee. Please correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, because Dr. Abati asked that question. It's not a deflection. Respectfully.
No, but the question being biased asked
Dr.
you.
Abati asked that question.
It's best you just go into the question and answer it so that we can ask you more questions. Because it's just a long-winded deflection. Please.
Okay, no problem.
Thanks. She's asked you a question. No.
I disagree. Okay. You are my good friend. I disagree that it's a deflection. However, the danger of a single story is a problem in Nigeria. A contextual background always helps us to, get our point across. On this particular issue, the local government system has collapsed in Nigeria. Everybody knows that. And we are talking about it. And I agree with Vimba that political culture is a big issue, right? Political culture is a big issue, and I believe that in a federal state, we have to really agree on the philosophy of our statecraft. There are many federal systems in the world. We can choose whether we really need 3 levels of government or we need 2, so that the state can be responsible for their local government. As of today, under our Constitution, Section 7, appears to have given birth to a baby and threw that baby away and asked other people to take care of the welfare and affairs of that baby called local government. And that is the challenge that we face. So we need to address that constitutionally to say, do we need 3 levels of government? In that case, then we take steps to reduce the influence of of the governors over the affairs of the local government system. In fact, the reason we're having insecurity and the level of underdevelopment is because the local government system is not working. If the local government system works, state will work, and by extension, the federation will work. But today, governance has been collapsed in that particular sector. I train local government councillors. I visited a particular local government in Nigeria where the councillors told us that they can't even meet except the secretary to the local government brings key and open their chamber. They can only meet when that secretary is around. And some local government, it is the secretary to the local government that is the clerk to the legislative officers. So you can imagine that kind of confusion. Even appointment to local government offices and chambers come from the state government. Some of them have never seen the local government law establishing them for the first time. They don't even have access to the standing orders governing their own legislative affairs. So I agree, and I think that conversation, we need to have it. We can establish a local government electoral commission to address that, or we just have two levels of government, restructure our revenue sharing formula, and allow state to create as many local government as they want to competitively drive development. Okay. Yeah.
So how do we improve logistics for INEC to be able to have, in a case scenario where we have all the elections on that same day, how do we increase the logistics? Because, you see, the counter-argument I've heard you make, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is the fact that, yes, it might be a logistical nightmare. But the question we should ask is, we had an election that INEC claimed a technical glitch happened on the presidential election, but that same glitch did not happen on the Senate election that happened on that same day. So even when INEC had some logistical capacity, it still failed. So number one, how do we reform INEC? Secondly, how do we improve on the logistical capacity of INEC? Thirdly, how do we prevent these glitches allegedly by INEC that today we don't even have computer records of those glitches? Because till date, INEC has not still told us the kind of glitch that happened in the last presidential elections. These are my questions.
Yeah, some of us, while the Ninth Assembly was winding down, we asked that an inquiry should be conducted. Indeed, that motion came up, but it was shut down. And it's only in Nigeria that Parliament is not allowed to make inquiry into certain things just because of party affiliation and contestation. The Parliament is supposed to have conducted inquiry, even if it's a closed-door inquiry for national security concerns or whatever it is, to at least have first-hand knowledge of the kind of glitches that INEC faced in the presidential election. Because certain things for national security people may not be made public. But there are reasons elected representatives, are the voices, the ears, and the mouth of their people. Unfortunately, that inquiry was shut down, but it's not too late. I believe that inquiry should also go on. Secondly, I found something interesting in the Electoral Act, that it is only federal government that funds national election. And I think that is wrong, because if the federal government is responsible for funding election, then they are going to also be responsible for dictating many things. And I think that section of the Act should be amended so that the INEC funding can come from our consolidated revenue fund account before distribution is made. Since we consider election, and indeed it's very important to democratic consolidation and progress in Nigeria. In terms of logistic solution, INEC itself, we need to professionalize INEC. Recruitment process in INEC should not be like a normal, because it's an independent institution of government. Not because the name is independent, it's actually categorized in the Constitution as one of those institutions that cannot follow the direction of anybody except the provisions of the law. Today, INEC uses the National Road Transport Worker every year in the last few elections to carry out logistic distribution and what have you. We know that most of these people are members and even chairmen, ward chairmen of political parties and what have you. So you have already set the template for your logistics to be disrupted. We know that since JEGA, they brought people from universities, university professors, and other management staff to manage elections. We have seen that most of them go to the places they are deployed to without even accommodation, and politicians will have to accommodate them. We have seen security, the level of security being deployed, and politicians will have to help those security men to be accommodated. And that is why INEC budget must be properly scrutinized and dissected, and proper planning made. There are independent logistic companies in Nigeria. Today, in US, some private companies are used. Private companies have liability under the law if they breach a contract agreement, but we don't even consider them. And most of them are functioning whether in urban areas or rural areas, and we can complement it with the arrangement we have today. We have never heard them prosecute any road transport worker who probably woke up that day and said that it's not going to function. So there are a lot of interventions we can do to unbundle INEC, professionalize it, and make it more competitive in delivering results.
Mr. Okereke, just two quick questions, and I would like if your responses are clear and concise. Number one, the issue of this single-day voting. How do you think electronic voting can help? Because in some of the countries where they do when they do single-day elections, some of them have electronic voting. You won't even know that voting is going on, and the result will come out, and there will be great clarity. How do we adopt technology, upgrade technology here? And then secondly, you refer to the bandwagon effect. Now that bandwagon effect, how do you think single-day voting can help address it?
The interesting thing in Nigeria, and I know, Dr. Abati, you have contested election. You know that if you're running for president, you have to provide logistics to almost everybody, down to the House of Rep members. And some of them, sometimes those logistics will disappear on their way to those you have provided it for. And I think technology is important here. But again, political culture must allow us to deploy credible technology to drive the process. And technology must be incremental. It cannot be absolute immediately, because we still have issue of poverty and political office holder weaponizing poverty. We still have issue of 70 to 80% of Nigerians being domiciled in rural Nigeria where they have no access. But of course, today there are technology solutions that can go beyond that. But you will need a lot of education. You will need a lot of awareness. If you have been in polling unit, you will see the kind of problem that happens there when a woman who cannot identify party logos comes and somebody wants to assist her to do so. It will always become, a problem. So we need a lot of political literacy, mass mobilization, enlightenment and education alongside the technology. If we're introducing it, it has to be a pilot scheme, incrementally done. You could see even the amendment for electronic transmission, how politicians watered it down and made sure that the effective collation process is manual, while electronic is, is just the alternative to it. So technology is good, but we are not going to be able to deploy it now absolutely without proper high-level mass enlightenment process. Yeah.
Okay.
And again, just to the issue of bandwagon effect. If you do election in one day, it will help everybody, because most politicians at the local level, focus on the election. They want to win. If you do election on one day, attention will be divided, and voters' behavior can possibly, yes, people will be saying, oh, vote along this party line because when we work together, we'll achieve results. But it will reduce the availability of time politicians and candidates have to be focusing on other electoral offices except themselves. Yeah.
Okay, on that note, we'd like to thank you very much, Mr. Okereke, for joining us on the morning show.